Hey guys, welcome in. I'm over here at the La Plata County Administration Building. There's going to be a meeting for the residents of the Lightner Creek Mobile Home Park. Going to be, I think they're going to be getting some legal advice about what their options are for living in a community such as that one where they've been having lapses in water service to their park.
Yeah, I just made a message for that.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, folks, good evening. I'm Chuck Stevens. I'm the county manager. Thanks for coming out today and spending some time with us this evening. We've got a number of presenters that are going to talk to you. We're going to start first, though. I'm going to introduce the board chair for the county commissioners for La Plata County this evening. Our board chair is Commissioner Marsha Porter Norton, and she's going to make some opening comments, and then we'll take it away.
All right, thank you, Chuck. Thank you, everybody. And I don't know how many people we have online, but I think one thing we've learned from the pandemic, it's great that people can be at home and still come to meetings like this. And so hopefully you have a lot of people online. As Chuck said, my name is Marsha Porter Norton. I'm one of the county commissioners, and I'm here on behalf of the entire county commissioners. There's 3 of us, and so that includes Clyde Church and Matt Salka. Those of you that live in this mobile home park have been through a lot. I wouldn't pretend to know what it's like to be in that situation. And I just want everybody to know that we're standing here today saying that we support solutions. And I wish I could say that this situation was easy to fix. Obviously, we know it's not easy to fix, or it would have been fixed on February 14th. We do care about you a lot, and in thinking this through, I will tell you, speaking as one commissioner, it's been an exercise in frustration around jurisdiction and around roles and around who is supposed to do what. And so we felt that we owed the residents of La Plata County that live in this park, and everybody's been following this very closely, we owed you some kind of a way to get information to you about your rights. So we're not the landowner, and you'll learn a lot tonight. I'm sure you have been learning from the folks here who I understand came directly from the park and are doing a lot of work. Learn about sort of some of the who has jurisdiction. But we felt like the best thing we could do is equip you with information around what your legal rights are. So we feel like that is one way the county can play a role. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank our county staff for organizing this and for the speakers. Chuck is going to introduce you. And we're recording this information. I see we have the member of the public recording too. Welcome. And hopefully people that couldn't make this particular time will watch it because we'll have it posted to the website. Correct, Sarah?
We sure can.
Yeah, and I really appreciate our administrative staff for making the translation and the Zoom work. It's a lot harder than it seems from the outside, but appreciate everybody being there and folks that are here online. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Chuck, to introduce the speakers. So,
Okay, great.
thanks.
And on that note, I should have said this before you spoke. So we are offering Spanish translation simultaneously this evening via Zoom. So we have our interpreters online. There she is. Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. But I would ask for all the speakers, please keep in mind that she's going to be translating as we talk. So we should try to talk a little bit slower and pause every once in a while to allow her to catch up. Okay, so we are offering that this evening. The focus tonight, as Commissioner Porter Norton said, is to provide information to all of you. We have 3 speakers lined up for you tonight. So we're going to have Lindsay, who's going to talk first, and she's going to talk about Colorado legal aid.
Services.
Legal services.
That's okay.
Sorry.
We say legal aid too.
And talk about tenants' rights. Then we're going to have a representative from Housing Solutions of the Southwest who's going to talk about some potential resources that are available to tenants of the Lightner Creek Mobile Home Park. And then we're going to have a representative online from 9 to 5 Colorado. Cecia is going to talk about community organizing and how other mobile home parks throughout the state have organized collectively to come together to have a more powerful voice as tenants of a mobile home park. Okay, so with that, Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody, and thanks for organizing this. This is really helpful for our organization, first and foremost, because I think a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, don't necessarily reach out about a legal issue until the legal issue is literally on their doorstep or affecting their family. And so any opportunity for us to be able to talk about Colorado legal services and our availability as a resource is really, really important, and we value it very much. So I'm the managing attorney of the Durango office of Colorado Legal Services. We are a statewide nonprofit that provides free legal help to folks with various civil issues. So we do family law when there are divorces or custodies involving domestic violence or risk to children. We do public benefit appeals. We help people that are getting sued for debts. We do Chapter 7 bankruptcies, and then a large portion of the work that we do are eviction defense and tenants' rights work. So the Durango office is comprised of myself as the managing attorney, and I also do a lot of casework, and then 2 other staff attorneys and 1 paralegal. And we basically serve 8 counties in this region. So we are based here in Durango. We're right down the street at the West Building. And we handle a lot of cases here in La Plata County. We also handle cases in Montezuma County, Archuleta, and in other areas in the southwest part of the state. So just generally how people can access our services. I have brochures here that has our intake line. Would welcome you to take as many of them as you want, and I have more and can give you more. People can make applications. So there is an application process to make sure that you're financially eligible and that it's a legal issue that we would help with. Generally speaking, what we're talking about here would fall probably under both of those. But there is a quick process that you can do either over the phone, online, or even have some paper applications here. Once our paralegal, and we check for conflicts and things like that, once our paralegal does the application, the case gets staffed with either myself or one of the other 2 attorneys for kind of a longer interview process, and then we staff the case either for representation or advice. So that's just kind of traditionally how you access our services. It's a little bit like a familiarity with like the public defender system or other things, that there's this process to go through. Generally, once we do an application, as long as we get documents from folks, you're talking to an attorney within a week. So it's a pretty fast process. So in the area of tenant rights, so what I wanted to kind of focus in on today, given what's going on at Lightner Creek, obviously everybody's aware of the lawsuit that is happening across the street involving the Attorney General's office, who is bringing the lawsuit on behalf of basically the mobile home, the owners and residents, as well as the mobile home oversight program for violations of what's called Colorado's Mobile Home Park Act. And the Mobile Home Park Act is relatively new and is quite complex, but it is important in that it establishes rights for homeowners who own their homes and are renting lot space, but it also has quite a few rights and protections that are expanding every year for residents. And so, meaning people that are renting the mobile home either from a third party or from the park directly, and then also paying lot rent. And so this lawsuit to force fixing the sewer and water issues, an injunction is basically for, you know, an attempt to kind of force compliance with the act, okay? And there are certain rights that residents and homeowners have under that act as well. Separate and distinct from that is just Colorado landlord tenant law and rights of individuals who are either homeowners or tenants to enforce their rights under Colorado landlord tenant law, as well as the Mobile Home Park Act. And so what I wanted to kind of bring forth today is that while there are absolutely orders that have been in this case that I think are very protective and helpful for tenants, from our standpoint, it's really critical that residents at the park seek legal advice from our organization, not necessarily to say we're gonna run out and file 25 lawsuits, but more to understand how what is happening at the park is affecting you and your family. And the most important thing I can say about legal consultations and even landlord-tenant law is it's incredibly fact-specific. It depends on if you're a homeowner or a tenant. It can depend on whether you're a family member of a homeowner and residing in their home or not. It depends on what your lease says, if you even have a lease. It can depend on your rent situation. Are you current on rent? Have you paid rent late? Have you had allegations of violating the lease? Have you gotten notices before? It is all incredibly individual and fact-specific. And so what our organization, you know, ideally would do with everybody that wants to seek our services is really sit down and answer questions and provide advice and consultation about how this lawsuit might be affecting you, and, you know, should I be paying rent? Should I not be? Do I potentially have a claim under the act or other things?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's fine.
But this nice lady here, she has assisted living. She's in a Darlene trailer. Her trailer is unlikely to pass a HUD inspection. She needs it. Can she work with you to facilitate that process and get some defense so the assisted living people slow down a little bit and she has more chance to stay where she is?
Sure. So the first step in that process would be to either take our brochure or our paper application, and we can do an application with you and start that process. So I can't give, and I don't plan to give individual advice in that situation.
And they can beat on Darlene too.
So there's the Mobile Home Park Act, there's general Colorado landlord tenant law, and then there's something you hinted at that I wanted to touch on as well. Colorado has a very specific statute called the warranty of habitability that ensures that rental properties are fit for human habitation, okay? And some of that is covered in the Mobile Home Park Act for homeowners, but then there's a separate one that is for people that are renting an apartment or a house or whatever, or a trailer. And so there are quite obviously claims under the warranty of habitability that relate to this water sewer issue. I don't think anyone disputes that, but a lot of that is being addressed in the lawsuit. But there are also claims, as we're well aware of doing this work for many, many years and well aware of this park, of warranty issues that are maybe related to doors that don't lock, windows that are broken, mold, plumbing issues, all kinds of things. And so again, we advise people and help people with those kinds of issues on the regular, and would like to do that in relation to what's happening here as well, because there can also be claims related to retaliation. If a good faith complaint was made about the conditions of a rental property, and in response you were told, if you don't like it, get out, or you're gonna get evicted, well, there might be a claim for retaliation there. And so that's kind of why I'm speaking to how every situation, there could be a lot of parallels and then a lot of differences. And so our role as legal aid is really to work with people individually so they can understand their situation, maybe what their options are, and then potentially file claims and lawsuits if that's what is the best course of action for people. So that's kind of a general overview of those things, and I can't emphasize enough that we hope people reach out to us. We have worked with tenants at Lightner Creek. I've been with CLS now, it'll be 10 years next month. We have, the judge handling this case used to work at Legal Services, and so she has a lot of experience as well with these issues. And so we obviously work with a lot of other parks and tenant rights issues across in this region. So it's an area where we're knowledgeable. The other thing I want to say though is because we are legal services and we only assist tenants, we have had people come to us where there's a conflict. So if you or know somebody who is a home, might own a trailer at the park and you're renting it out, you might be a prior landlord that we've dealt with either at this park or another park, and we might say there's a conflict, CLS cannot help you. Similarly, we've had folks that used to be property managers apply for services with us and their name pops up as a conflict because they represented a landlord at one point. So I would still really encourage people to contact us, and what we're gonna do, since we're small and able to do this, is try to engage maybe some other volunteer attorneys or other folks, or try to direct people toward other resources if that happens. Just knowing that, you know, you might be conflicted out of our services just given your situation. And also you could also potentially be over income or over asset. So that's generally how we work. I'm happy to answer questions now, or we can go to the next, but if people have questions about how we work or things related to legal issues, I'm happy to answer them now or later.
I think questions as we go is fine, and then maybe afterwards too. A lot of times people don't like asking in the moment, so we might just loiter smartly after we break tonight. Just
Yeah.
somebody might grab you one-on-one.
That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, so our brochures are there with how to apply for our services, our actual paper applications. I also brought business cards for our paralegal, Mary Catherine. She's the one that kind of handles intake, so if you want to reach out to her directly. And then I think we had also talked about other, you know, resources in the community. There are, you know, private attorneys that we can sometimes get to volunteer to take cases. And then I know that there are some other organizations within the state of Colorado that are doing more with eviction defense. And I don't have all the names, but if people want that, I can put it in an email. It goes, if somebody is in the unfortunate situation where you're served with a summons for an eviction, you actually are required now to get a document that has all these organizations listed, and so they're in that document if needed. But yeah, I'll just stop there. Thanks. Oh, yeah.
Would it be possible to get so it would not surprise me if Darlene wishes to evict some people at some point.
Yeah.
In spite of us being the ones who have the right to collect the rent and the ones having the right to collect
Sure.
the back rent.
Sure.
Would it be possible to get a brief outline of part of what you just said?
Yeah.
If Darlene wants to evict you, we are here for you, this is how you do this, here's the application process that we can hand out to the tenants in
Sure.
their trailers.
Sure.
That might be
Yeah,
really
and one of the
helpful.
things we always try to tell people, other organizations, anyone, is in a rental situation, if you ever get a written notice from your landlord, that is when we want you to call us. And so exactly that situation. And sometimes that written notice is a valid notice that says you violated your lease and it's on the court template, but we still want you to get advice, because then you have to know that actually you have to get a court order to actually evict. Sometimes that notice is a piece of scratch paper posted to a door that is completely illegitimate and can be challenged in court.
Mhm.
So anytime somebody gets a written notice, that's usually our priority. So yeah, doing a little outline of like, if this happens. But I mean, quite frankly, like what's going on right now at the park, really anybody can contact us about any issue going on, and we would take an application and try to advise
I
to
just
be
like to get
preventative.
it, those are the folks who are at most at
Sure.
risk of eviction.
Yeah.
She was actually, the day we got involved in this, the
April
day after we
1st.
signed the contract.
April 1st, she's going around collecting rents, and we're
Well,
like,
no, the day after we signed the contract, when we were up there introducing ourselves to people, she was in one of the trailers with Tara filling out eviction notices, and I talked her out of doing that.
Right,
I
right.
said, you're an idiot
Yeah.
if you do this right now. The judge already hates your guts. You're
Right.
gonna-
Well, and just so everybody knows too, like the eviction notice is not an eviction, it's the
Yeah.
first step to eviction,
Yeah.
right? But a lot of times what happens is people get a notice, it's got a court document, it looks official, and they move. Which sometimes, not in this situation, but sometimes that is the right remedy, right? You owe like $15,000 in back rent, you get an eviction notice on your door, it might be in your interest to move out and not go to court. But yes, like that, educating people on that is important, but just if this happens, then call us, that would be great.
Yeah,
And that's the
if we
kind
could
of
get
piece.
something like that from your office,
Sure.
we'll get it passed out to the people in Darlene's trailers. And that might
Yeah.
really do some good.
Sure, okay. All right, I'll stop for now. People have other stuff, I'll be around.
Okay,
On this
thank you.
picture.
And thanks for being here again. And
Sure.
like I said, we'll ask all the speakers tonight to just kind of hang out afterwards. So we're going to be following, I believe, Elizabeth, are you going to speak on behalf of Housing Solutions?
Well,
Okay.
we've got a team.
You've got a team, right?
So,
Okay.
you know,
But Housing Solutions of the Southwest is going to come up. This is Elizabeth Salkind. She's She's gonna talk about some resources that may be available to tenants.
Team. Team. Just like the basketball.
You'll have to introduce your team.
I had a question before we did that. Is there an update from the park regarding ownership? It would maybe help inform what we speak about, because we're getting, is that
Sure.
something I
Would you
can-
like the update?
I think yes, I would love to hear the update,
Okay.
if that's okay.
How far back do you want me to go? How detailed do you want me to go?
Maybe the short version, and then
Okay.
we can talk
Short
after.
version, Short version is, we are leasing the park under a ground lease from Darlene, and we are then subleasing her trailers back to her, which she then leases to tenants. That's not many trailers now, she's down to something like 6. Everybody else owns their own trailers. So we lease it from Darlene, and we sublease to the owners of the trailers, which
And
gives
there's-
us effective control, but not ownership.
And there's a
Darlene put a
contract
notice.
underway.
Yeah, there's a contract purchase. Darlene put a notice of the contract purchase on some doors that was completely legally deficient. We're gonna do the correct notice, but right now, I mean, you can see us, we're focused on getting water and sewer.
Yeah.
That's like a laser, that's what we need to do now. We'll deal with the legal niceties later of the sale.
Okay.
The problem with the sale is the wastewater system,
Right.
that giant monster in
So
the
there's due
background.
diligence still happening.
No, actually,
it's
we've done
not
the
due
due diligence.
diligence.
Okay.
We cannot install a sewer plant that will meet the standards that have been set for the park. There's no technology that exists, no matter how much money you have, that will meet the effluent standards that they came through and set. So without a variance from those standards or some real effluent limits that it's possible to achieve, we will not close the purchase on the park. And if we cannot achieve that, the park will be disbanded. It will
It
fail.
will have to go away.
You'll get 2 septic systems if you're very lucky, probably 1 septic system, maybe 8 or 9 trailers.
Okay.
And that's.
The reason I'm asking is I'll talk a little bit about the things we do, but one of the things we do is, administer some of the vouchers in the region, not all of them. And we did receive notice, I think directly from her regarding that the payments should go to.
Ah, yes,
great.
did you send me an email?
I did, yes.
Yes, okay, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I haven't
Okay,
gotten back to you.
that's okay.
I've literally been
No
in a
worries.
ditch.
I just wanted to close the loop and understand at least the short version of who.
We are collecting rents and
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah,
collecting
and we need
rent.
to switch your
We're
stuff
not-
over to our bed.
We're not collecting space rent until water is restored,
Okay,
right?
All right.
So
We'll
no
connect.
rent is being assessed until water and sewer are functional.
okay. So I'm gonna go through some basic resources that they're not specific to this situation. They're more just general housing resources that might be applicable to some people in the park, in now or later. And I just wanna make sure you're, definitely legal aid is the place to go for the legal advice. So, first one I wanna talk about, and we'll introduce the team. Where'd the rest of the team go? Oh, there she is. Anyway. So, anyway, this is Tony. She's gonna talk a little bit about emergency assistance, and, well, you should introduce, this is your team.
Sure. So
Yeah.
I'm Evelyn and I'm Director of Programs at Housing Solutions, but these really are our key folks. This is Tony, who is our intake, well, she's our certified housing counselor with our SEEK program, which is our Community Emergency Assistance Program, and she'll describe that. And then Emily, who recently joined us, is our wonderful resource who really triages all the calls that we get in and the numerous calls and provides information and resources, just a list of affordable housing, really drills down and gets to people to the right place within, not only within our organization, but within the community. So great team and we're in good hands, so.
Right, we have some folks that aren't here. I'm gonna start with the things that they work on. So there is a program we have, I just wanna make you familiar with it. It's called the Rehabilitation Program. Does not fix water and sewer systems.
Of course not.
I mean, not the big $1 million.
Here's the pamphlet.
Right. Oh, yes.
Actually,
Can we have that?
Yes, yes,
There's gonna be a lot of
yes.
folks
Yeah.
that really need help. when we get
specifically,
water back on.
yeah, because the water went away, we're not sure how many people figured out to turn their hot water heaters off. So if you have people who can replace hot water heater elements, I'm sure the rest of the heater is fine, but we may end up with some people that have bad elements, and it's a $25 part, and, it's not a big deal. So something like that, that could be very germane.
Don't have that, but let me think.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what we do have, and then I'll brainstorm about all the
Good
things we
plan.
don't have. So I'll start with the rehabilitation program. It is a loan. It's a low interest, like 1%. We're running them now to homeowners. It could be a homeowner of a mobile home in a park. To do rehabilitation of the mobile home. So it's obviously not gonna solve any of the water and sewer
That's
problems
okay,
that
we'd love
you're
to have
talking
that
about,
too.
but
Yeah.
let's say there's, we do tons of water, sewer, things related to the responsibility of the homeowner if they're living in the home. So this doesn't apply to the folks that are renting
You don't wanna lend
from
Darlene?
someone else. This applies to someone who owns their home and they're renting in the park. So it wouldn't be for tiny $25 one-day things because it's a loan and there's a lien and it's not, worth it for that. But for something where, they just can't afford to do it and it's a health
A
and
roof.
safety. A roof.
A $5,000 or $6,000 roof that they need to have,
Yes,
I understand.
exactly.
We
So
got you.
I know that's not the immediate concern of most people, but if there is something like that, I just want to make sure people are aware. We can even, Christina's not in the room, dare I say, defer some loans. And, we just set it up. It's like a home equity loan, but much easier to receive from us. We do have a loan committee. We try to look for equity in the mobile home, which sometimes can be challenging, but we're more creative about it than banks are. And the goal is really just bring up the quality of homes. And with mobile homes, sometimes the goal is simply like, somebody can live there 5 more years, 10 more years, that's for us, like a good enough reason to do it. So we're state funded, it's a revolving loan, so we're able to help people in the 5 counties. And we've done a lot of work in mobile home parks for individual homeowners,
Gotcha.
not for the park owners. So that's one thing. You mentioned the heating. We do also run a program, it's got a weird name, it's called Crisis Intervention. It's kind of weird. What we do is if someone is very low income, it's a free, so it's a grant to repair a heating system. So
Okay.
repair, replace water heaters,
Is your heating system
that
She's
sort
running
of
the training,
thing.
though. She's
I don't know about a
Sometimes.
$25,
work sometimes?
issue.
Is that only for tenants or is that for,
That is for, again, homeowners.
it's gotta be homeowners?
Homeowners, and maybe in some cases where homeowners are renting to affordably, but I'd have to get the program manager to
We're
get the
not going,
details.
we're not giving Darlene any of this.
So,
No.
so anyway, it's
We're not
really to
giving
fix
Darlene
heating
to fix her
systems because they're
heating system.
dangerous. So, and
So good.
sometimes replace them for free. The difference between, and the other program can do that too. The difference between the two is that second one is, it's free to the person, it's a grant, you have to be very low income. The other one, we can actually go up to 120% of median income and it's a loan. So, again, it's not specific to the immediate problem, but I know, I'm.
As we move into smaller details later on, this will become
Yeah,
important.
like
Yep.
roofs and, anything, electrical, but nobody wants a lien for $100 item. I
Right.
mean,
No, I understand.
minimum, I don't know what a minimum might be, a couple $1,000
No,
item.
there's lots of failed
Yeah.
citing.
So if someone's interested in that, that's something, we can talk to people about. So, those are the 2 ones I wanted to mention, and I'm gonna then, I don't know what order it makes sense, maybe Tony, if you wanna talk about, I don't know if you're familiar with the SEEK program, which is for La Plata County and San Juan County. It's essentially a pretty open-ended program. We can do grants for a lot of things. If somebody has an emergency situation, up to $1,000. So I'll let you talk about this one-time emergency program.
So I do SEEK is a one-time emergency program, and we cover like rent, we cover utilities, we cover car repairs, car payments, a wide variety of stuff. Anything that you have that you think might be, give me a call, and I can let you know yay or nay. I can take it to the committee and go, this is what we've got going on, is it something we can do? I do have applications up here. I also do the EOC program, which helps with utilities. So if you have a gas bill, electric bill, those are ones we can help with. There are LEAP applications up here as well, and I can give a stack of those to you before you leave. You have to apply for LEAP before you can apply for the one for the furnace. So that's something, and you have to apply for LEAP by the end of this month. So we've got to get that going pretty quick if you haven't already done it. They're all good programs. My cards are up there. Be willing to talk to any of your people to see if there's something we can do to help.
Could you pay for things retroactively?
No, it has to be before. So,
Back rent.
like back rent.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah,
sorry,
retroactive to
yeah,
wage, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
sorry.
saying the same thing.
We're not on the same page for some reason. Yeah, so if it's past due.
Retroactive,
Yeah,
yeah, all right, not in
yeah.
the future.
Not in the future, yeah. So I can't pay next month's rent, but I can pay this month's rent.
Right.
So, yeah.
And back
Same.
only 3 months.
Yeah, and only 3 months. So if they're more than 3 months behind, we can't help them.
And
So-
a really important thing about this program is that, Tony receives probably about maybe 10 applications a week. The committee meets every Friday, and it's a local, different members of the community involved with United Way, LPA, the Human Service Department, and so the applications are reviewed early in the morning, a decision made, but it is then meeting the whether it's a utility bill or a past rent, if the application is approved, it is then paid to the vendor within the following week. So it's a quick turnaround, and it's an ongoing process. So it's a really nice opportunity for needed, sounds like these are some really critical situations and urgent. So I think reaching out to Tony is with her card, because then she can bring you in and she can assess and evaluate, and then, with Emily as well, there's lots of triaging that goes back about what might be some other resources in addition to housing that might be a benefit. Are there childcare things? Are there such a broad, holistic approach? So,
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I have to say is like, please call and I'll see if there's anything that I know of that fits into whatever situation you've got going. I refer lots of people to legal services, as you all know, yeah. But happy to try and figure it out with you.
And we did bring with us, I think, on the list, I'm not trying to talk people into moving elsewhere, but there is subsidized affordable housing in the community. There's not like you walk in tomorrow and move in type of housing, but if you think that down the road that might be a better option for somebody, get on the list now. It's not an obligation, it's a lot of homework. You've got there's whole lists, and each one's owned by a different entity, and you have to go talk to them and see if you meet the requirements. But I mean, it is a good idea to have a backup plan, and you can always turn it down later. It's not, there's no obligation once you're on a wait list to take it. And so I would encourage people maybe to have a backup plan, depending on what their circumstances. The other one I forgot to mention was, through our rehab program, we do and can pay for the move of a trailer to a different place. Now, what I will say about that is, one, it's usually not a good idea because it's so expensive. A move, minimum, like doing just like, if it was like the easiest one ever, would probably be $10,000 to $12,000, because you have to have someone professionally that's state authorized move it and someone set it that is licensed, so to speak. So. And it's just a complicated process to get right, and if it's not done right, you could lose the home altogether. And not every home, is in good enough shape to move. I mean, and not every home is worth enough to move, and there's a lot of reasons not to do it. But there might be someone in the park that's the right answer for. I mean, I just don't know, because I don't know everybody's individual circumstances.
What about a move to the Bondad landfill? Because some of them,
Yeah.
I know it sounds funny, but some
No.
of us might actually end up getting all our property evicted with nowhere to go, and we'll have to dispose of it.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be just a
That
move
was-
to another location, that's a move for disposal.
Yeah.
That was one of our
very
big questions. If we can't get on the wastewater, when you said move, that's why we got really excited.
Yeah.
If the state won't approve the wastewater, what's gonna happen is everybody who's there, it's gonna end up in the hands of the bank. Or if we fail, if we run out of money on this, then it ends up in the bank. Bank's not gonna do the wastewater system, they don't have a captive engineer, they're screwed. So if there's no wastewater system, then the park has to shut down. If the park has to shut down, how are people going to live up to their lease obligations and move,
Actually, they'll,
She'll answer
if
that
they
one.
can
They
move them,
actually
they
have a
will.
right to recover,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's changes in the act where they actually have a right if there's a condemnation or change of use.
but nobody's gonna have any money.
Right, but it's not gonna fall necessarily on the tenants to have to pay
Okay.
for it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So no, I don't have any easy answers about disposing. We've had to do it and it's expensive. It's not as expensive as moving one because you're
It might,
chopping it up in little pieces is how we do it and put it in a truck and away it goes.
But it might
we're-
be
we
on
don't
your-
have a way to do that yet.
but it might be on your radar that if the sewer system is not approved by the state, there's no way to put a sewer system in there, you're gonna have a bunch of people who are going to want to move. If they can move their trailers, they're going to want to move them.
They're going to need.
Right.
They're gonna have to find a place to put them.
Right,
And
yeah.
most, current mobile home park, I'll talk about it two different ways. Most parks have somewhat strict regulations about what you can bring in
You think a
to
coat of paint ain't gonna do
park.
it, right, yeah.
So, I
Right,
mean,
right.
not all, but some. I mean, although we've always, like, in the ones we've worked with, like, we helped when McPhee shut down, we moved all of the ones that were movable. I mean, we paid and did the loan to have them moved.
Gotcha.
And so it all worked out, like, everyone found a spot somewhere, so.
We hope it doesn't
You
come to
know,
that,
it is getting harder to do that. And the other thing is you can move to a private property. It sounds a lot easier than it is. If you have a relative that has this beautiful property, it's not necessarily as simple as getting it there. I mean, you have to follow county regulations and potentially subdivide. We can only help if it's in your name, so the legal names would have to match up and you'd have to, but it doesn't mean it's not doable
Understand.
under certain circumstances. It's just, I guess, my thought in this is that everybody, if they could have a plan A, B, and C, and hopefully never get to them, that would
hopefully you're
be-
plan D or
you
E
know,
or F, yes.
Hopefully you
right.
don't really need any of
Or
this,
moving
I'm
them,
talking
yes.
about, or maybe it's all like put back together, the infrastructure, and then maybe the roof situations need to be addressed, so, you know, so I don't know which way it's gonna
It's
go.
okay, you made a clear presentation of what's available, that's very helpful.
I mean, I'm trying to.
We'll make
think-
sure we get it to everybody we can in the park,
Yeah.
for sure.
mhm. So,
Lots of resources right
Yep,
here.
yep.
and I think the most important thing is just call and ask us, and everybody's situation is different, and I can't maybe even come up with a good idea today, but if we mull it over with our partners in the community, and it's not just us, there's, you know, we work with Homestead and we work with,
We
the
just
state.
have one requirement, every loan you ever offer
Yeah.
has to have a stipulation, they're not allowed to flush baby wipes ever again.
Oh, yeah, my
Okay.
plumber mentioned that
As long as we agree on that, we're golden.
Yeah, that's a big no-no. I have to replace my own sewer system at my house, so I know what it can cost.
Is there still like emergency COVID ERAP? It's
No.
pretty much spent
No.
out. And did you guys were, because I know somebody was saying recently that EMAP, Emergency Mortgage Assistance, can be used by homeowners to pay a lot rent.
That is my understanding as well.
It has to be COVID related, why they feel behind in rent,
Which is easy to show. I
Is
mean,
it still?
honest,
Okay.
yeah, that's, the mortgage one's still in business, limping along with a little bit of funds, so
Yeah,
it's
that's-
worthy of someone trying if need be.
Yeah,
And it's a simple process if you,
have someone do it.
sort of simple process. I mean, it is supposed to be a simple process, so, you know, you just do it online. Hopefully they still have people processing them. I know that's been the problem, and if you have problems on that, we could give you some specific advice about like who to call and bug. So,
And I have that link too, if you know, if people send them my way.
Right,
Yeah.
Are those, is that other loan program that, through the bank, the local bank? Is that something-
probably not applicable. I mean, there is, First Southwest Bank is starting a program to help people get into housing, and they are providing loans. If you qualify, you gotta have a good credit score, et cetera, you know, seems like
You'll get
maybe
there.
out of reach, for many people, but it is out there. We're gonna try to work with them and hopefully maybe help modify that to make it more feasible and more broadly available.
A few guarantees here and there help them a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, so, you know, there are resources in the community, and everybody's situation's different, so I think the bottom line is, you know, call us, call legal aid, we'll figure out, like, the next phone call to make, and, you know, we don't have a solution for everything, and I mean, I will say that on the infrastructure issue, I've been harping on it for years and years and years, and I mean, everybody's heard me talk about water and sewer and water and sewer and water and sewer, and there's just very, it's really hard in Southwest Colorado and La Plata County particularly, so.
Here's a Zoom
Yeah,
question.
we have a Zoom question. Christina, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I don't see it.
This is Christina Kostelowski. I'm with the Colorado Division of Housing and the Mobile Home Park Oversight Program. Sorry that I can't be there in person, but I did want to listen in today. And I heard the mention of EMAP, and I wanted to confirm that is true. The EMAP program is now assisting individuals pay off loans for mobile homes and assisting individuals in paying off lot rent. So the website for that is mortgagehelpco.org, but hopefully that can be of some assistance to folks in Lightner Creek.
Fantastic. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll give everybody your cell phone number. Who's not laughing?
I know most of them have it. I appreciate that I've been on a lot of the text message chains, but yes, feel free to share my contact information with anyone who's there today.
Okay, we'll do. I don't think we have anything else unless there's a housing related question. The only other thing I would say about legal issues would be that, discrimination issues, there's a specific state agency and office that takes, housing discrimination types of complaints. And again, I would refer you to legal aid, but we do sometimes get questions like that and provide that resource, or at least that contact. I don't know if somebody calls legal aid office, how you handle it, I assume the same way. But sometimes there's an element of that in certain people's questions. So.
I have one more question.
It's about the sewer system.
No, it's not. Obviously, it would be in our best interest to be dealing with tenants rather than Darlene. And we feel that a lot of the maintenance issues are due to her failing to maintain things, for which we are paying dearly right now. But a good solution for that might be people who are renting her trailers buying them from her. Would your loans work in a situation like that you were talking about? For instance,
No, but
one of the gentlemen is moving out, and he just sold his trailer for $1,200.
wow.
So the actual dollar amount we're talking here is really likely to be really, really low.
I mean, doesn't mean it's not something we can think about. And the homes fund, I'd want to call them in on purchase and, $1,200. Wow, that's interesting.
Darlene's
I mean, I'll have
trailers
to
are
think.
really sharp.
I'll have to think about that.
First question, where is it?
I mean, I can't think of an immediate resource, but I'll give it some thought. I mean, there might be some pool of money, and if we're talking small amounts of money like that, I mean.
Yeah,
I don't
if you
know.
come up with one, let us know, because we can spread the word to the folks in our trailers, and maybe they can work a deal, and then we'll be.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to see someone, the liability issues and different things. Maybe I'd refer them back to legal aid, and, there might be some downsides to the ownership of something that's got a lot of deferred maintenance versus, so I'm not sure I'd recommend that to anybody, but like I said, every situation's different, so, you don't want to rule anything out under any circumstance, so maybe they should have like a consultation with legal aid if that's something that's maybe on the table. But I wouldn't rule anything out, with housing these days, we consider things we didn't consider 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because if we don't, there just isn't enough housing. But anything else we've forgotten? Any other hard questions?
Just reach out to us. And I'll hang around in case there's questions after we're done.
Good thing about SEEK is there's no real rules.
Where are the county commissioners?
Right here.
Just one? How many are there, 5?
3.
3?
Yes.
I think we're a little short, I thought there used to be 5.
There's 5 city councilors.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
nice.
they didn't show up, and they don't care. The county is not gonna come up with a dime, she's not gonna come up with $1. I'm sorry I missed your presentation, but here's the deal. It ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen in this room. The Hamiltons have been trying, and I know they got DAC drilling, and I've done a lot of contracting, you guys have seen me around town. I've been doing this stuff for 23 years. San Juan Basin Health, Wally White, everybody. Not $1 tomorrow, not a dime from any of you ladies, not 1 cent. Not 1 penny. And the county commissioners aren't here, only you, and thank you for attending. And nobody's gonna come in and help Chris and his brother with the state, with the septic fields, with San Juan Basin Health, with all of this. And I've done septic systems up in the Cliff subdivision in solid sandstone. Covered a third of an acre. The perk test and everything with San Juan Basin Health, extraordinary. They're not here, the state's not here, the county commissioners aren't
State
here.
is
You know who showed up? Those guys.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Appreciate your support. Thank you.
Well, I'm just poor, I'm not stupid. You know? Come on.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate
Well,
it.
I mean, what is this meeting about? So the tenants can air grievances over a situation that is insistently being tried to be remediated with new water wells. Okay, number one. Anybody up there gonna drill a new water well in that area starting tomorrow next week? You can't even look at me, because you know you're not.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure who you're looking at, but you missed.
Yeah,
I
Larry,
might have missed the
Larry,
presentation, but I understand the situation. Am I wrong in my assertions?
I'm so sorry, with all due respect. If you weren't here for the beginning to understand what this meeting was about.
Oh, so it's basic in-group, out-group, and if you're not rich and you don't have money to come and volunteer for this, you don't
Do you know-
belong? Is that your point?
Nope, my point is, do you know who we are or what we're talking
No,
about?
but I know I busted my hands all day, and I know I can look at your hands and know that you don't work.
Sir, can I ask you something?
Sure.
First of all, I want to say, I know you're really mad.
Yeah.
No, I'm upset, but I'm not mad, I'm not
Okay.
angry.
Upset.
Mhm.
I get it, we get it. I am a commissioner and I kicked off the meeting and I said, we wouldn't pretend to know how anybody who lives there feels. What this meeting is about, and this may not be your cup of tea or what you think should be about or is about, is to provide resources about your legal rights. And we've been very frustrated with the jurisdictional issues. And it sounds like we're making an excuse and we're not trying to, it's just true. We don't have jurisdiction as the county, and I know people, that's hard to hear.
No, I understand
You
very
know, it's
well
hard to
county,
hear.
state,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, okay, so you
yeah.
get it. So I understand why you're angry, you have a right to be angry. I would ask you to respect what we're trying to do here, and then I would like to talk to you afterwards. We can figure out what we're trying to do is to give people a better voice than you have. Okay,
Well,
and we may not go
we're-
far enough.
look, we do most of the working, living and dying in this county, and we're
Okay.
getting run out at a rapid rate, and none of you people will. There may be a few in the audience who are gonna lose a trailer, but none of you people are gonna lose anything. And you can't offer anything, or else saddle up, let's see the dollar amounts, let's see where
They
the water
just-
wells
sir,
are, let's see
sir.
where the piping are.
Sir, they just went through a whole list of resources.
Okay, and
They-
then so
as
those
they-
resources
as they
gonna
just-
show up this coming week,
Yeah,
this
so
by
what I
Friday.
would ask you is you can talk to me afterwards, I'll go out in the hallway with
Sure,
you right
I
now.
would appreciate it.
All right, would you
Sure,
talk? Okay,
absolutely.
Because I think we have one more speaker,
Oh,
and if you would
please.
be,
I'm
slightly,
sorry.
if you would be patient
I'll
enough to
back
hear
up,
the
I'll
other
back
speaker.
up. I just showed up
No.
late and I'm mad about that too.
It's okay, it's okay if you're mad. I just want you to know, we're here to provide resources. This is Housing Solutions for the Southwest. And they offered a whole plethora of resources, and we're trying to help. And it may not feel that way to you, but we are trying to help,
Well,
okay?
I'm somewhat familiar with the applications, the income qualifications and all those
Okay.
other hurdles you have to
All
go through. But that timetable is not gonna work in the present property market, and I think everybody in the room knows. But you'll throw that out there and throw stops out, and everybody gets to apply, and nobody wins, and you guys stay the same in your great houses on your land here in Durango,
Okay,
with
so-
your kids, your dogs, and everything else.
So I think I'd like to say that we cut this off. I'm happy to go out in the hallway
Sure.
and talk with you if you'd like.
No, I'd like to
And
hear
I think
him.
we need to give the airtime and the space to the other speakers.
They're rich, they're white, and of course they come
They might
first.
have childcare for stuff too, if you
Let's
like
talk.
childcare, so they get money for
Let's take the
that.
next speaker.
When you're putting an abusive daycare as a child, it's really hard.
I'll bet it.
Children,
I'll bet.
Okay, we do have one final speaker. I can see Cecia is online.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Hey, hang on one second, please, Cecia.
Okay.
Okay.
just don't leave it at what I said.
I'm letting the room settle here for a second. Okay, so we have Cecia, she's with 9 to 5 Colorado, and she knows how to do community organizing. And she's gonna speak to you now, and we've got you on screen, just so you know. We can see you, you're on the big screen, and you've got a captive audience here in the boardroom. And it's all yours, take it away, please.
Awesome, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Would it be possible to turn the camera to the folks who are in the room? Right now, I'm just seeing your desk.
We don't know where the camera is.
There you go. I can see people. Thank you. Just want to make sure that I feel like I'm talking to somebody. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Cecia Guadarrama Trejo. I am the Executive State Director for 9 to 5 Colorado. I wish I could be there in person, but I do live in Adams County, so I'm about 7 hours away. I got to travel to be in Durango last summer. It's a beautiful town, and got to visit the residents of Triangle Park, which I virtually organized with for about 7 months when their park went up for sale. So I also want to let y'all know that I live in a park myself. I live in a community of about 400 homes in Adams County. My family lost our home in the foreclosure crisis in 2008, 2009, like hundreds of thousands of other American families did in that time. And my mom bought a mobile home. I had no idea what a mobile home was, or that these communities existed when we moved in when I was 15 years old. And so, you know, I also am not going to pretend that I understand all of the things that you are experiencing in your community, but I can definitely much relate to living in a park. My family and I have lived in our mobile home for more than a decade now. That's the place where I've grown up to graduate high school, where I lived when I graduated college. And so I can very much relate and understand what it's like to live in a mobile home community, and can relate to a lot of the issues that people don't understand, right? Like, I talk about trees all the time, and people are like, why are you obsessed with trees? And I'm like, you don't understand like how that's a huge issue in some of our mobile home communities. And I want to talk a little bit about 9 to 5 Colorado. And actually, can I get access to sharing my screen? Is there a way to grant me access for that?
May.
Thank you.
I think you should be good.
It says host
Okay.
disabled participant
Okay.
screen sharing.
Okay, try again.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I have a presentation that I want to go through really quick, just to talk about Organizing 101, and talk a little bit about 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is an economic justice organization. We work to create systems change through issue-based advocacy, grassroots organizing, and community education, most of the time directly by engaging impacted women and their families. And our vision is that all women and their families can live and thrive in an economically and racially just world. We are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. The Colorado chapter was founded in 1996, and originally we came together when a lot of women were entering clerk, office administrative jobs, and were facing a lot of gender discrimination and sexual harassment. And since then, we've transitioned to do work on equal pay for equal work, housing justice, worker issues around paid medical and family leave, and particularly organizing tenants and mobile home owners. 9 to 5 has been one of the leading organizations that actually has implemented and passed a lot of the policies that we were talking about today. So the program that was created through DOLA was through efforts led by 9 to 5 with other partners to establish an enforcement program in Colorado for the Mobile Home Park Act. Before 9 to 5, and we still kind of are, this like unofficial mobile home hotline where people were calling us
about all sorts of issues, whether it was water, whether it was lot rent increases, whether it was their park being shut down or their park being closed. So we worked on being able to create the program that now we all know as DOLA, that Christina is here representing. We've also worked on creating the laws that created opportunity to purchase guidelines for when a park goes up for sale, and the guidelines that talk about what happens if a park is going to shut down. So I know some of y'all were talking earlier about like worst case scenario. I want you to know that there are requirements in the law that put options for what happens, what kind of remedy can happen for mobile home owners if a park were to close. So I'm here to talk a little bit about just what is grassroots organizing and why we use it as a tool, right? I can assume that many of y'all probably have lived in your community for at least a few years. I know some folks, some of my neighbors have lived in the park that I live in, even before I was born. And so we talk about grassroots community organizing as a tool. Organizing is really, really important, right? Usually this image is to represent what happens when we organize, right? In the lower picture, you can see, or in the bottom picture, right, you can see like all the smaller fish with the bigger fish that is super easy to eat them up. Usually I think of examples like corporations, corporate landlords, right, where they are taking all of our income, whether that's lot rent, whether that's regular rent that we pay. We know a lot of us are paying 80%, 50%, sometimes 100% of our income just towards rent alone, right? But when we organize and we can come together, we can create strategies and we can create tools to uplift one another. And really, yes, I understand and I hear, right, the person who was sharing earlier, the dynamics around money and around power. That's very real. I don't think any of us can deny that, you know, if you are rich and you are wealthy, that you are set off in a much better place probably for you and your family in this country than if you are not. However, not everybody is rich, right? In an example of a mobile home park, we can think of a landlord versus the residents. There's one landlord, there's multiple residents. And while we may not have the same amount of money, we have people power. And that is the tool that we need to use to organize. It is very easy for us to start fighting between one another, having disagreements, and it's fair. We all come from different walks of life. We may share different perspectives about multiple issues, but when there is a self-interest issue that is impacting everyone in our community, that is the opportunity that we can take to really organize, right? There's a lot of nonprofits, there's a lot of type of work. Y'all just heard from some amazing people who have very direct service resources, which is very important, and it's important to have those tools. And at the same time, we know that, you know, if somebody can help me pay for my lot rent next month, what happens the month after? That's why organizing is so important, right? Because we have to think about what is like short-term and what is long-term. And while direct assistance is going to help us and is super needed, potentially it's not going to be the tool that can carry us long-term out of whatever problem we're facing. Why is it important, right? We can actively build with our community. We can educate our community members if there's a resource or a portion of a Know Your Rights section that they don't know, that we can do that. Having collective negotiation power. I don't know how many of you have ever worked at a job that has a union. We are unionized, and all of our, most of our workers at 9 to 5 are unionized, right? And so when you are able to have collective power, your negotiation power changes. If it's just one of you who, in your block, you're the only one that's raising your voice, you're the only one that is willing to do the work, that's gonna have a much different impact than if the whole block or half of the block is willing to take action and is willing to go knock on doors or host a community meeting, helping our community members protect their legal rights. We have passed a lot of new protections in the past 4 to 5 years when it comes to mobile home owners. And I know that it can be hard, right, to like keep up with unless like you're doing this everyday work. how am I supposed to know exactly what my rights are around water, around the eviction process, around the closure of a park? And then obviously ensuring that your park landlord respects, includes, and respects all the laws, and then us as residents ensuring that all the residents are respected and represented in the process. Something that we always encourage folks is assigning block captains. I was just looking up the record for the particular park that folks live in right now. And it's my understanding there's 41 lots, maybe that's off, but that's the record I found, right? So having block captains for maybe every single row of homes, or having 1 or 2 people who are in charge of passing all the information, and building relationships, right? If someone invited me tonight to this meeting who I had no idea who they were, and I just got a flyer on my door, I may not come, right? But if my neighbor who has lived next door to me for 10 years invites me to a meeting and talks to me about the importance of knowing my rights, being involved, being aware of what's happening in my community, I am more than likely to come. One-on-ones are things we do all the time, right? We're always having conversations with one another, but in particular, when we say one-on-ones, it's having a conversation where you have that self-interest, right? You're gonna talk about an issue that is impacting both of you. You're gonna make an ask. Your ask is probably like, hey, can you come to this meeting? Hey, can you sign this petition? Can you fill out this survey? Whatever it is that you are asking to collectively move forward all of your interests. Having regular community meetings is super important. Obviously, right, I am just coming into this space not having a lot of context of how many meetings or if you all are conducting meetings. Usually when we organize in a mobile home community, we always recommend hosting meetings in a place that's very accessible and close to all of the residents. In the parks that we've organized in, we usually host meetings in someone's home. Anyone that's open to opening up their home and hosting a meeting there, or somewhere that's like very outside of the park, that it could be within walking distance or driving distance, whether that's like a public library or a room that you're allowed to use. By law, you're supposed to be able to use any common area that is in the park. I know a lot of us don't necessarily feel thrilled to be meeting maybe in the leasing office or a common area that the landlord or the manager is responsible for, and so that's why we meet inside someone's home, we meet somewhere that is within distance, and having regular community meetings is super important. Even if you have a small update, even if the movement is slow, that's such an important piece to keep the momentum going. And also because it depends on the size of the park, right? I live in a park with 400 homes. Not every single person knows when a meeting is happening. And so if I stop hosting meetings, I can just maybe think, well, no one wants to come to our community meeting, but I don't know if somebody just moved into the park. I don't know if maybe this is the first time someone is coming to a meeting, and so being able to have that option is very important. And then forming an official neighborhood association. I know that usually when we say the word HOA, we all kind of think of our own idea of what HOAs look like. The HOAs we are talking about and that we recommend creating are ones that are already in place. They're not there to put more rules and to collect more fees and stuff the way we traditionally see sometimes with townhomes, for example. But there's very specific ways to create HOAs for mobile home owners. And the reason that's important is that then you have an entity that is registered with the state. And let's say, I know DOLA right now, and it sounds like the AG is taking their own right of legal action, I think against the landlord. But let's say there is 1 or 2 of you that said, that's great, but we want to seek our own relief. We want to seek our own lawsuit because this is how much we were impacted by financially because of what's happening, or X, Y, and Z, and y'all wanted to collectively create a lawsuit. It's a lot easier to do as a group and as a collective than only having one of you or 2 of you be the main plaintiffs. Oftentimes people feel a little bit more confident when it's done under the name of an entity like the homeowners association. And so that's one part of it. Also, homeowners associations allow you to create roles like having a president, a vice president, a treasurer, and a secretary. And that's not to say like, whoa, now this is a position of power, right? I'm the president, I get to decide everything that's happening with the park now. No, that is so that there is a structure in place, there is guidelines and templates that tell you what role you're supposed to do. Let's say y'all apply for a community grant together, which is something that we often do and encourage folks to do, is applying for community grants that can pay for food at a meeting, that can pay for childcare, that can pay for interpretation. I don't know more context of the residents that live in your park, but if there are residents in the park who English is their second language or who are monolingual Spanish speakers, that's an important tool, right, to make sure that everybody is getting the information. And those are resources that you can collectively hold in that entity versus, well, you know, who pays for this, who applies for that. Oftentimes, if you can partner up with a nonprofit, they're willing to pay for those things. But if you don't, right, or if you don't have that resource, it can be done through a resident group. Making a list of community agreements, this may sound like super silly, right? But that's actually really important. That's really important in part of any meeting, and in part of any work, any way we're gonna work together, right? For example, I can tell y'all that in my park, we have a residents group that is it's like a formal HOA that's registered with the state. And one of our rules is if you work for the landlord, or if you are like management of the landlord, you can't be part of the residents group. And that's not personal, that's because we don't like that person or because we think they're a bad person. It's not about them, it's about the principle, right? To make sure that residents feel comfortable engaging. We know every single time that whatever we do, at the end of the day, the landlord is gonna hear about it, the landlord is gonna find out. That is what is bound to happen. But we don't want to be giving away our strategy. It's a conflict of interest, right? If I was to form a union, I'm not going to include my boss in forming a union. I'm going to include my peers, who are my coworkers, who I'm trying to unionize. And so those are kinds of agreements that you can make, or agreements at a meeting, right? Maybe something so simple like one mic, right? Not everybody's going to talk at one time. One person is going to share at a time, or a voting system. In my park, it's one vote per home. So as long as you show up and you represent your home, everybody gets a vote, but it's only one vote. You may own 3 homes in the park, that's great, good for you and your family, but you still only get one vote. Those are the kinds of agreements that you can, talk about and do. Setting some collective values, right, in situations where a park is up for sale or a park is gonna shut down. And I've worked and I've seen in multiple parks. I've worked in parks that have completely closed with 100 families who were just displaced. I've worked in parks that were sold successfully to a good entity. I've worked in parks that were sold to corporate entities. And it's very real, right? People are going through a lot of stress. They're going through a lot of real life heavy decision making that they have to make for them and their families. We're talking about our homes. We're talking about things that we bought for ourselves that maybe we planned. This is where we are gonna retire, and all of that is being uprooted and challenged. And of course, things are gonna come up. And so talking about values and what is the collective interest is very important, because it can be very easy to, exclude yourself and say, well, I am going to do what's best only for me. And that's why organizing is super important, because it is about the collective. Creating a database is super important, a way that y'all can keep track of your information. Who lives in what lot? What's their phone number? Do they have email? Do they read their email? No. What's the best way to contact them? Maybe there's someone who's like, I don't have a smartphone, or I don't read my email. You have to text it to me. Knowing that kind of information is super important. And obviously, yes, like that information can exist elsewhere, but it's really important that you all have that information. This isn't about what other people have. This is about the information that you have collectively. And so we always encourage, like in my park, we even have just like a poster board that has everyone's lot number, and we have a system to track, like, do we have that person's contact information? Do we know if they're part of our text group? Do we know what language they speak? Do we know if they have children? Do we know if they're in a fixed income? Those things are super important. Talking about exclusiveness, right? Some of the things I was talking about, if you do have residents who don't speak English, they're not gonna understand, no matter what, right? How many flyers we drop at the door, if they're not in the language that they speak, which might be Spanish or it might be something else, they're not gonna understand what that is, right? Childcare. A lot of folks don't come to meetings because they don't have childcare for their kids and they don't wanna bring their kids to the meeting. And so if we either make it aware that like kids are welcome at the meeting, or we are gonna have childcare. Food, right? I know that a lot of the meetings that we have, they're held in the evenings after people are coming home from work, and the last thing you wanna do is be in a 2-hour meeting when you haven't been able to have dinner. Being very careful about not falling into the divide and conquer strategy, right? And what I was talking about earlier, it's really easy for us to take all of our energy and everything that's happening and turn it against one another. And when I think about that, when that happens in my community, I think about how the only one benefiting from that is my landlord. No one else in my community is winning from that. Not my neighbor who disagrees with me, not me because I think I'm right or wrong, but the landlord, right? And at the end of the day, they're gonna be set. They're fine. They've been collecting my lot rent for more than a decade. And so thinking about those pieces and recognizing each other's strengths, right? Maybe there's one of you who's like just super good at creating something that's visual, so that's the person who's creating a flyer. Maybe there's some of you who are like, I have time during the evening to go knock on doors, and I'm not afraid to like knock on a stranger's door and ask them to fill out this survey and this questionnaire because we need this information. Whether this issue is going to get fixed one way or the other, this is the collective information that we need. Some of the methods of communication that we always encourage folks to think about are flyers, right? That's super important, especially things that are left at the door, because we know that a lot of us, that's the communication that has been done in the past is something that is left at our door. Using other apps, that on your smartphone, apps like WhatsApp or Signal are very helpful because you can create an app where you add multiple phone numbers on there, and instead of me having to text every single neighbor or call every single neighbor, I can use a smartphone app that allows me to send a picture of a flyer or allows me to send an update that everybody is receiving, and that has been very helpful for a lot of parks and a lot of residents because it's an easy and rapid way to communicate important information without y'all having to wait, like we have to go knock on everyone's door, right? Like today, for example, if you already did have, or I don't know if you do have, maybe you already do have a collective method of communication as a group or as a park, you can send a picture of the resources that you got today, right? So yes, of course, I think I heard someone say like, we're gonna make a plan to make sure everybody has this information, and you can do that multiple ways. I'm not saying this takes away from like door knocking and doing it in person, but it can also be like a super quick way to do that. Door knocking, we know that's super important. Making phone calls and collecting surveys. The survey collection is super important. I can tell you from experience that any park that we have worked at, whether worst case scenario is the park is gonna close to the park is gonna go up for sale and we have a new owner, to whatever is happening, having that kind of information is super important up front to inform what is the impact going to be. You know how many people under 18 live in your park, you know how many people have fixed income, having an understanding of what are the needs that you are going to have, and that can help you also create the ask that you have for your local government. Maybe it's very specific things that you're asking from the city, that you're asking from the county, and you have the information to back it up, right? You can say, we have 10 families who are on fixed income, and this is very real, right? This is the only money coming in from them every single month. So it's super important. I wanted to talk a little bit about power before I show this video that I'll talk about, what it is. A lot of us, I feel like in situations when we are organizing or when we are facing issues, we can feel powerless. We can feel hopeless. Like no matter what I do, the outcome is gonna be bad. But when I think about power, power is the ability to act, right? We don't always have to think about it as good or bad, and power is relational. Yes, of course, my boss who controls how much I get paid or can fire me, there's a disbalance in power, right? They can say like, hey, Saskia, this is your last day on the job, or this is how much I'm gonna pay you. To an extent, I have some power over that. But it's the ability to act. And every single one of you, every single one of your residents that lives in the community has the ability to act. Even not doing anything, right? And saying, I'm just not gonna engage, I'm not showing up to the meetings, I'm not gonna get involved, is a decision on its own. But any step that y'all take is the ability to act. You can fill out the survey, you can knock on doors, you can become a block captain. Oftentimes we like to think of leadership as people that we know, or people that are influencers, or people that have big names and big money, which makes sense. That's a lot of us have been conditioned to think about leaders and leadership that way. Obviously like city council, county commissioners, yes, they can be great and helpful, and they're leaders themselves, but that doesn't mean that we can't be leaders in our own communities. And just really encourage y'all to think about what this means, because at the end of the day, right, what is at stake is you and your community, you and your family. I've heard a lot of y'all say like, well, things can happen this way, things can happen that way. I'm sure that's very true. And so no matter what, folks are gonna be asked to make a decision for them and their families. And I also wanted to highlight that organizing is protected under the Mobile Home Park Act. It is legal for you to organize, it's legal for you to form an association. A lot of times folks are afraid to, well, I don't wanna go to the meeting, I don't want to sign up for something because I don't want my name to be tied to that, because then I'm gonna be retaliated against. I cannot tell you that you're not going to. I never promise residents that they're not gonna be retaliated against, but I can tell you that your right to organize is protected under the law. And by law, you can even request your landlord to meet with you, and they're required to respond. They're not required to meet with you more than twice, but they're at least required to acknowledge your request to meet. Obviously at this point, I'm not advising that that's what y'all do. You are aware of like where you are at the stage of the issues going on and the players that are representing y'all as residents. And at the same time, I just wanted to be very clear that this is your right to organize and to come together, and that if you are retaliated against, you have additional protections. Again, I never say like you're not going to be retaliated against. I can't like promise that for anyone. However, I can tell you that that is your right, and that then you can seek out legal counsel. I always ask people, once you start getting involved or you start organizing, to be documenting. Maybe before you never got a notice about something in your yard or something in your fence. All of a sudden, it's an issue for you, but it's never been an issue, or no one else is getting a notice. Documenting that kind of retaliation act is very important, so that you have a way to protect yourself. And then there's a guidebook that we have in English and Spanish that walks through a lot of these things. It has templates for literally everything, templates for meetings, templates around what it means to create like a steering board or an HOA. And I just would encourage y'all to take a look at it, take from it what it might be helpful. It's in English and Spanish, and it's just like rich of information. The law school from CU Boulder, in partnership with 9 to 5 and the Colorado Property Law Project, created this guidebook that has a lot of the information I'm talking about, because obviously I only have 30 minutes. And the last thing I want to do is I want to show y'all, I don't know how many of you have seen this film called A Decent Home, but I just wanted to show this video because one of our staff members, well, our previous ED and one of our current organizers are featured in this film. And I just want to show y'all because, you know, we're not, when I think sometimes about the issues in my park, it can feel like we are the only ones that is facing this issue, and it can feel like a huge monster. So just want to show the trailer, and then I will end there and take any questions. And hopefully the audio will work.
A mobile home is not a second-class house. A mobile home is my home.
The homes of some of the poorest people in America are getting snapped up by some of the richest people in America. And luckily, there have been no problems whatsoever.
I found a letter taped to my door that said our rent would be increasing by 63%.
My whole world just kind of keeps crashing down.
Even though I own my home and pay for my home, unfortunately, I'm on somebody else's land.
There's no constraints on the rents. They can raise them to whatever they want.
Estamos a punto de perder nuestro hogar. When are the rich enough? Money. We want more money out of this.
Sean, do you know how much money you're gonna get for the park?
You could choose to stay with the mobile park and just make less money.
That is entirely true.
I would like to ask everyone to stand. If you are someone currently seeking affordable housing,
The scope of our problem is significant. We need people to speak up. I've never done anything like this before in my life. We don't want people to forget that we're here. We're not gonna take that lying down. We're just not going to. Nobody sounds silent. This is really about people getting in the fight. I'm fighting to get in.
We survive. Between the house inside the hill and us on the side. We're going to fight wherever people meet and stay together.
So I will stop there. I believe that last summer there was a film screening in La Plata County, and I don't know if any of y'all got the opportunity to watch it. If anyone's interested in watching the full film, I'm happy to find a way and share how you can watch that. I don't think we have any upcoming screenings happening close to Durango, but you know, can coordinate something. So that's my piece. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for including me and being part of this forum tonight.
Any questions for Cecia? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much for taking time this evening to join us. We appreciated that. That was great, Cecia. Okay, well, everyone, I think that's it. That's the final presenter for this evening. I thank all of you for making time and for being here. Like I said, I would ask the presenters if you would just stay for a few minutes, and then all of the materials are here on the table. Please take all of them and distribute them widely when you get back to Lightner Creek. Any final questions for me or for the county or anyone?
Just a quick one. So if, let's say we're successful in obtaining permission from the state, and we do install a state-of-the-art sewer plant, we have extremely low emissions, we do manage well, and demonstrate this is a feasible method going forward for affordable housing, would you consider permitting more affordable housing of this type in the county? So allowing land use such as another mobile home park, you know, if we can line resources and effluent quality and location, I mean, it's a very high density, but what works best about this is that people who are in high density apartments, the stresses are much higher. So here, you can get people in the community that have other issues and other problems, and they have their own little space that's theirs. And the rules are a little looser, and so it kind of, you can have some migration and decrease stress in other areas that are high density housing with this sort of housing. So strategically, I would urge you to consider that going forward if we can provide an adequate model.
Why don't, I'll take it and then I'd like Chuck to take it after that to fill in where I may left out. First of all, we have in our county code a provision about mobile home parks already. And I absolutely think they have to be part of the continuum. As to would I vote on X, Y, or Z project, that has to come through a process because we look at yes, the sewer and the water and the access, and we don't have zoning in the county except for in the Animas Valley. And so there is it's permitting. It's permitting based on compatibility, which is a good thing and a not so great thing sometimes. But I absolutely think that.
So the neighbors get to say no then?
Well, that's not the only factor. That's not the only factor.
Okay.
And certainly neighbors can come out and
Because
say
NIMBY's
things.
a real problem.
But we also have this thing called when you have a vested right in something and you can do it, then that's important too. That's very important. So we have to sit up there and balance all the factors.
No worries.
And anybody can follow I think what's more important is if a project like that were to come in front of us, that we have the community come forth and say that they support it. Because you're right, sometimes there's a lot of.
The local landowners are gonna be like, no.
Yeah, so I feel like that's important. As to a specific project,
Okay.
we evaluate things one-on-one as they
Fair
come
enough.
along.
Fair enough.
But I think we've got to look at, there's a bill right now we're going to talk about tomorrow with the commissioners where the state of Colorado, and the bill has lots of problems with it, I'll tell you, but one of the intentions of it is to get more and different kinds of housing near transit lines and near cities and towns. Now, the bill has lots of issues with it, so I don't know if we can support it this year.
But that's all gonna be high density.
But we've got to look at different ways to
Yeah,
do housing.
that's gonna be
It's not
Right,
working,
right.
so.
I know.
We've got to solve this immediate problem, or, those who are working on it have to solve it, and we're here to provide resources from the groups that talked.
Yep, okay.
But I know it's a little bit of a long-winded answer. Chuck,
I think the only thing I would add, Commissioner, is affordable housing is one of the board's priorities. So,
Right.
so you've made it clear to the staff that this is a priority and we need to do everything we can to facilitate.
This is details offline. Thank you very much. sir.
Yeah, good question, though, very good question.
Okay. All right, then we will wrap things up this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
And on Zoom, thank you.
Yeah.
Cecilia, thank you again.
Thank you, that was great.
Thanks, Elvia.
At some point, you're going to have your planning meeting with everybody. And, well, we can go over here. So,
Maybe.
so wastewater, so